Somebody recently asked me about how we made the decision to have my father-in-law come and live with us here in Tokyo, and so I wanted to talk about that a little bit today because it was not an easy decision, but it was a lot easier than most people realized. The thing is that at the time I was actually really excited about my work and had just come back from a business trip to the US, and I had a couple of new contracts, and I was really excited about what I was doing with my business online. I was already working from home. So in that sense, to have him come live with us and to have more responsibility was not such a big change for me. I was already not working out of the home. I was in the home, and so that made it a lot easier for us to make it possible. But it was a huge leap of faith because we live in a very small condominium, and I had no idea how we were going to make it work and what we were going to be able to do for him and how he was going to be able to spend his time every day. Well, the actual moment that we decided to have my father-in-law live with us, and actually it was my mother-in-law too, and I'll explain that in a minute, but the actual moment when we made that decision was very quiet. It was at night. We had just come that day from visiting my mother-in-law in the hospital, and we knew she needed more care. We knew that she needed to be moved to a facility closer to us. And we knew that in like a split second, we knew that my father-in-law wasn't going to be able to manage on his own alone anymore, and that we had no choice but to step in. So that moment of reckoning was very quiet. There was no fanfare, no thunder and lightning, nothing exciting, just a kind of a moment of truth. But really the decision to step in and live together, not necessarily the decision to have them move to Tokyo, but the decision to live together was something that we had started making several years prior. We had been part of a TV show that followed us to Hiroshima, and they were filming life in Hiroshima and what it might be like if I were to live with my in-laws. And part of the premise of the show was that we were down there to talk to my in-laws about someday possibly living together. Now, we had never talked about that with them before, and so the first time we had that conversation on camera, it wasn't a super positive conversation. It wasn't negative either, but nobody was very hopeful about it. In fact, my mother-in-law at the time had said, well, I just don't see how it's possible. I don't see how you could ever move back to Hiroshima to live with us. There's no work for you to do here, which is actually not true. There's lots of things that we could do, but my husband does have a full-time job here in Tokyo that he doesn't want to give up. So at the time that was sort of true, but I remember saying to her, okay, yes, we can't see the way now, but we don't have to decide that it's not possible. We don't know how it's possible, but someday we're going to make it happen. So we already had that idea in our head that someday we would make it happen. We just didn't know how. And we certainly, at the time when we had that first conversation on camera, we had no clue that it actually wouldn't be about us moving to Hiroshima. It was going to be about having them move to Tokyo. I shared a minute ago how the moment we made the decision was nighttime, and it was very quiet. But right after we made the decision to step in and be part of my in-laws' life, I decided in my head that that meant I should move to Hiroshima. And fortunately, my husband didn't agree with me. He said right away that if we were going to make it happen, that if we were going to step in and help be part of their lives and take care of them, that we had to do it together and we needed to do it in Tokyo. And I'm forever grateful to him for that, because I could have gone to Hiroshima and I could have taken care of my in-laws. We could have done that, but it would have been a huge strain on our relationship, and I don't think that we would have done as good of a job and had been able to provide as well for my in-laws if we had done it separately. So I'm really glad that he had the foresight to keep us together as a team, and that's something that I pushed him on. I really thought that it was better if my in-laws stayed in their own home, in their own hometown with their friends. I didn't want to have to move them, but it really turned out to be the best thing for us, for us all, because there was so much more support that we had for each other, and also that we could then give to my in-laws. When we made the decision to have my father-in-law live with us, my mother-in-law came to Tokyo with him and was living in a nursing home nearby, and my father-in-law was with us here in our home. When we made the decision, I didn't really understand the impact it was going to have on my business and my work. I thought that because I was already working from home that it would be no problem. I would be able to continue as is. And that wasn't exactly true. And anybody who has children or is caring for a parent or any dependent knows that even if you're in your home and working from home, and surely the last few years of the pandemic have taught us too from working at home, that things do change. It is different. You don't necessarily have as much time as you think you have. And I really had to prioritize what I wanted to work on. And so several of the projects that I had been excited about before they moved to Tokyo, before my in-laws moved in with us, several of those projects I had to discontinue. And I was disappointed in some ways, and in other ways really relieved, because I discovered that they weren't truly what I wanted to do. They sounded cool. I thought they were projects that would lift my business up, and maybe they would have, but because I had a more limited amount of time and limited amount of space and energy and wherewithal, oomph, yo-yo is what I refer to it as, because I had such a limited amount of anything extra to give to my business, I had to be very clear about what was most important to me, and I had to let go of those things that I no longer truly wanted to do, those things that were no longer fully in alignment. So that was difficult for me. It took some time to adjust and to really find my way through that, and that was not something I was expecting, and because of that, my business today looks totally different than it did when my in-laws first came to live with us. So, but I'm grateful. I'm very grateful. I'm much happier today, and I'm much happier in my business today because of it.